Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and it is Sunday. We all know what that means. It is time for the Texas Gun Vault poll question of the week. Before I start this video, I have to apologize for any background noise. As soon as I got the camera set up and decided to film this, my neighbor next door decided it's time to mow the lawn and make a lot of noise. Well, I can't control that, and I got to get the video filmed. So if you have any background noise, I truly apologize. But this is a weekly segment where I try to poll you guys on various aspects of the firearms community and culture. Sometimes it's politics, sometimes it's about specific guns or guns in general, or the news or current events. Well, this week's question dealt with your feelings and thoughts on the future of the Second Amendment here in the United States. And with that said, let's dive right into the question and get to your results. Last week, we had ups and downs for the battles being fought around the Second Amendment. On one side, we saw Joe Biden and the Democrats push many gun control bills, and some even passed the House of Representatives. And on the other, we saw the Sixth Circuit Court overturn the bump stock ban and thus advancing a pro-gun agenda. With the state of American politics being what they are, and with the makeup of Congress and the judicial branch, in general, are you optimistic, pessimistic, or neutral towards the future of gun rights in America? I kind of thought this was a good question to ask because there's so much going on when it comes to gun bills at both the federal level, which for the most part are pretty negative, and there's a lot of stuff going on at the state level that is very positive. And I also know from an emotional standpoint, when you watch what's going on, you hear the news, see the world and the state that it's in, it can really affect your outlook on life and your outlook on what you believe in and the passions that you have. So I was kind of curious, because I know that with so much going on and everything that's happened in the past year, where you guys really felt the future of the Second Amendment lies. As I said, I can see an argument from different perspectives where you might think it's positive, negative, neutral, or maybe something else. Of course, a lot of that depends on your station in life, what state you live in, any current events that could be affecting your thought process. Well, let's dive into your results and see what my audience thinks. Optimistic. The future of the 2A is bright and strong. 14%. Pessimistic. The march towards tyranny is unpreventable. 51%. Neutral. The battle for the Second Amendment will remain a stalemate forever. And then something else, explain in the comments below, 3%. And that was with 935 votes as me filming this video. So I think we got a pretty good sample set of my subscribers. I gotta say the numbers didn't pan out quite as I thought they would, but like always, I'm pretty sure I know which is gonna win, and the pessimistic side won, but not in the large number that I thought it would, with only 51%, meaning that only a little bit more than half are really pessimistic about that. I think that's great news. Let's talk about each one of these options and maybe why I think that each answer is viable. Well, we start off with optimistic. The future of the Second Amendment is bright and strong. Well, the reason I can see a lot of people thinking that this is the case is look at all of the new gun owners that have come into the fold. I can tell you from a personal standpoint that all the people that I don't want to say brought into the Second Amendment or maybe introduced the Second Amendment to, or people that I have just met through my journey in life that have recently bought a gun or kind of came into the firearms community, they're discovering, man, there already are a lot of gun laws and hoops you have to jump through to get a gun, get a LTC, a license to carry, or a CCW, all these things you have to worry about, and they're starting to get their eyes open. They're going, whoa, this is not what the mainstream media has told me this is about. And so it's changing their minds. Now, those seeds are getting planted. The one thing you have to realize when it comes to political conversion, shall we say, it's not something that happens overnight. I know from my personal perspective that when I started college many years ago, way back in 1998, I was a completely different person. In fact, my political philosophy is pretty much 180 degrees in the opposite direction from where I'm at now. I was actually probably pretty anti-gun. I remember even having debates about it, but it's because I was inexperienced and none of it made any sense to me. I was uneducated. As I've grown up, got life experience, and obviously been in the firearms community, my opinions have changed as I have become more educated. So I can see why a lot of people would think the future is bright if we can bring all of these people in from all walks of life, socioeconomic statuses, races, genders, because the Second Amendment is for everybody. They're all going to become pro-Second Amendment advocates. I can see that happening, and their votes in the future may reflect that. All right, so pessimistic. The march towards tyranny is unpreventable. Now, this is one where I kind of agree with, okay? I'm going to put myself more in the neutral category, but I can see where a lot of people think it's pessimistic. After all, we see all of the anti-gun legislation that's being shoved down people's throats at the federal level, the regulation, everything that's going on within pop culture, news, media, celebrities, all these advertisements or advertisements that are being put out about anti-gun stuff, about, you guys know what I'm talking about. It is like we are constantly being bombarded, and we really don't see the pro-gun side being pushed and the narrative being pushed to counter that, because the actors that, and by actors I mean people, not actual like Hollywood actors, but the actors that are pushing gun control don't allow dissenting points of view. And as certain organizations control social media, they don't allow pro-Second Amendment voices out there. So it's really easy to think I'm alone in this battle. But I'm here to tell you, you're not alone in this battle. I feel alone in this battle sometimes. You know, as I go through my life, my channel is not something that I talk to a lot of people about. In fact, a lot of people in my personal life and in my business life don't even know I have this channel. And when they find out, they're very surprised, because this is not a topic that I can necessarily bring up in basic everyday conversation, because I don't know where people stand. And obviously in the business world, I'm not there to talk guns, I'm there to make money, or it's irrelevant to my business life. So it's easy to start thinking I'm alone in this battle. So when I get home or have time off, I come out here into the garage and turn on the camera, read some news, and it's easy to think I'm alone in this world. But let me tell you, you're not. But I can totally see why it seems pessimistic. In fact, even if you look historically, you look at the progression of gun control laws in the United States and really in the world. I can't remember the exact person that said, I think it was Attorney General Ed Meese under Ronald Reagan, said that every day Congress meets, you lose a little bit more of your freedom and liberty. And in a way, that's true. As time marches on and some event happens, we have to pass a law to fix that, right? And so over time, the little sands in the hourglass fill up. And before you know it, you've lost all of your rights through whether it be laws or regulations. And that's easy to look at gun laws in the United States. Only a few times, and a few handful of times, can I say, wow, a piece of pro-gun legislation that repealed a law or made it easier has passed at the federal level. Most of the time it is restricting gun rights. So if you look at just the momentum of that, it's very easy to become extremely pessimistic and think the future is negative. Let's talk about the next one, neutral. The battle for the 2A will remain a stalemate forever. As I've gotten older, I've kind of begun to appreciate the balances of life, how there's a yin and a yang, a black and a white, that are in constant balance. And when your life is in balance between the decisions that you have to make, let's just say business and pleasure. You know, if you do too much stuff on the business side, you miss out on so much stuff in life. However, if you're irresponsible and don't have your house and your finances in order, you can't have fun, if that makes any sense. So you got to have a balance in your life. For any activity that you participate in, you have to have balance. Another example could be people that may have a drinking problem. You can't drink to excess. You don't want to be a drunk, but it is fine to go out and enjoy a drink once in a while. So everything in balance. Now, I'm not saying that in order for the pro-gun side to exist, the anti-gun side needs to exist, or vice versa. I kind of look at the future of gun rights as going to be a neutral stalemate, because as we bring in people to the Second Amendment and teach them and educate them, there's going to be a constant growth on the anti-gun side of people that are growing up, being able to vote, and are completely uneducated on firearms. So really the advantage is more on the anti-gun side, because it's much easier to bring in people that have no concept of firearms onto your side compared to us that has to educate people, have people shooting and understanding our points of view, because our point of view requires thought and experience. The other point of view just requires emotion. However, the battle for freedom and liberty is something that is constantly being fought, not just here in the United States, but the world around. Look at international conflicts, or even in places that traditionally are very authoritarian, like you have China or maybe Russia. You still have pockets of resistance, of people that want freedom and want liberty. It's human nature. Sometimes we just want to be contrarian. Whatever the purpose is, I think that there's always going to be that battle. And if you look historically at any country, even the ones that have passed extremely draconian gun laws, there's still the pro-gun movement. Australia, the United Kingdom, they're still fighting the fight. Sure, they might be on the losing end right now, but you never know. Because right now, it's really easy to look at the prism of history through just your own life. And we forget that life is going to go on for centuries to come, and this battle is much bigger than the span of our life, that maybe in 70, 80, 90, or 100 years, we will see the complete restoration of gun rights in Australia or the UK, just because culture changes, events happen, different politicians over time are able to chip away at what we see in the anti-gun movement. We don't know. The future is not set, and for that, it kind of gives me a little bit of hope, which doesn't necessarily put me on the optimistic side, because when I kind of plan things out and look at the future and move the pieces in the chessboard, I don't see many winning opportunities. But I also don't see many losing opportunities either. I kind of see this basic battle that will be fought forever. It's the battle of good and evil. And that's just the way it is. I look at the future of gun rights as neutral. I think you're going to see, in general, in the rest of my life, I think you'll see some advances on the anti-gun side, and then you'll see some advances on the pro-gun side. For the most part, it's going to remain about the same, which is what I think we've, in general, seen in the past 30 years or so. Of course, as I said, you get victories here and victories here. Let's talk about an anti-gun victory. Of course, we had the 1994 assault weapons ban that was put into effect for 10 years. But then we had a victory with the Supreme Court cases of Heller and McDonald. So you have a loss and a win. It's just going to be that way forever. When one side pushes too far, the other side gets the momentum and might have a strong campaign, and people that are affected by that one piece of legislation or anti-gun thing then all of a sudden care about gun rights, and it shifts in the other direction. I think it's just one of these natural order of human existences. You know, we are going to be constantly battling and constantly fighting. But of course, here in the United States, we want to do it civilly, and we want to do it by informing people, and want to do it through the ballot box. So let's hope that that's the future personally, but I'm kind of in the neutral stance where I don't see the anti-gunners going away. I don't see convincing them, but I also don't see them convincing us to change our minds either. So all that's going to happen in the true battle is going to be between us educating the uneducated and the other side constantly getting new uneducated people to support them. And the last one, something else, explain in the comments section below, 3%. So most of the comments that I saw that regarded this kind of dealt with future unrest, and that's going to be the future of the Second Amendment. And I tend to not agree with that. I have hopes that our country and our system, while of course it is flawed, it is not the best it could be, it's still the best I think humanity has ever had. And for right now, we still live in a relatively peaceful society, and we have, of course, great disagreements, but we can still get along. So, with that said, let's dive right into the top-rated comments for this week. Our top-rated comment for the week comes from Grand Theft Avocado. Pessimistic due to massive changes in the U.S. demographics. Well, I gotta say that I can understand someone's perspective from talking about demographic changes. However, as I have preached on this channel, the Second Amendment is for everyone. In fact, many of the immigrants that I have met in the Second Amendment community are so happy to come to the United States because of gun rights. They go, we don't have this where we come from. And it was one of the drawing factors to coming to the United States. I believe and promote the Second Amendment for all. I don't care about your race. I don't care about your gender or sex, height, weight, none of that. I don't care. The Second Amendment is for all Americans. And I think if we promote the Second Amendment as just a natural right of all free people, the demographics don't matter. And in fact, we can use the changing of demographics to our advantage. If we can get people to be passionate about the Second Amendment, who might be of typical demographics that would vote for anti-gun politicians, but make them care about the Second Amendment a lot, they're going to go, wait, I'm not going to vote for this anti-gun politician just because he's a member of a certain party. Because I care about gun rights, I'm going to vote for somebody else. And that could change the future of the Second Amendment. Next up, we have William Flowers, who says, Canada, Britain, and Australia are all considered our allies, brother nations who stood against tyranny, yet their citizens are at the whim of those in power. Trudeau can act without justification. Britons can be told they no longer can protest. All because these nations lack a Bill of Rights and a Constitution. Government can revoke a privilege at any time they like. Rights can only be taken if the citizens allow it. We must stand now, politically and legally. So that's a really interesting comment because he's absolutely right. The one thing that I think makes America so different than many other nations, and I know other nations have followed suit since the Constitution was adopted in 1789, but we have enumerated the negative liberties. Now, people might not be familiar what that means. A negative liberty is something that the government does not grant you. It is something the government cannot take from you. Versus a positive liberty, something that the government has to guarantee. So like you look at other countries, and I think it's absolutely ridiculous. Like you have constitutions of other governments that guarantee you have the right to a green energy source. It's like, that's not the government's job, but they put it in their constitutions because they feel good or whatever. That's a positive liberty. Here in the United States, we like negative liberties. And sometimes when people, especially anti-gun politicians or people that want to alter our society, will use the term negative liberty as though it's a bad thing. A negative liberty is a great thing. It means the government is restrained and restricted. And many of the other countries that William talked about don't have this enshrined in their constitution. They don't even have a constitution at all. They have an unwritten constitution that is just based on traditions. To me, that's very dangerous, and he's absolutely right. Anything can be changed on a whim. Just because someone feels like voting for certain politicians and certain actions in response to a certain event. All right, so our next rated comment comes from, actually, it's William Flowers again. Check this out. He says, the more people see their dads, brothers, sons, moms, sisters using AR-15s, AKs for fun as well as self-defense, then the more normal it will seem. Show them good people use guns. And let's start teaching our own children why the Second Amendment is so important. Man, that is, I think, the best comment of the entire comment section, because he's absolutely right. That is how we win the culture war. You don't win a civil war or a culture war or any type of political battle through necessarily violence. You change people's hearts and minds. Look at all of the successful revolutions of the world. You know, you have everything from the American Revolution, which was based on principles. Now, I know there was a violent conflict, there was a war, but it was a revolution based off of principles. Look at other great civil rights leaders like Martin Luther King Jr., or you have Gandhi in India. These people used non-violence and changed people's minds and hearts and accomplished so much, because that is the true power in human politics. And if we promote the Second Amendment, show responsible, good people using guns and having fun, and doing everything legally and providing defense for their home and their nation, it only supports our side. To me, this is where the culture war is won. So when you have the anti-gun politicians or the anti-gun people come out there and go, guns are bad, here is why. And they're going to go, wait, that's not the narrative that I see. I see my neighbors out there teaching their sons and daughters how to be good marksmen and be good, responsible citizens. That's not what I see. And then they're not going to believe the anti-gun politicians or people, and their power will diminish over time. All right. Our next comment comes from Braden McKee, who says, unpreventable just means rebellion is inevitable. Now, I gotta say, maybe that truly is the case in grand time scales. You know, I've always been fascinated by the march of history and time. I love history. I love studying things like the Roman Empire. Just like I like astrophysics, I've always been fascinated by the history of the Roman Empire. And in general, humanity itself. Everything seems to happen in cycles. I can't remember who said it, that history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. We've all heard the examples of how a nation can be born into freedom. You know, they fight a rebellion and they get freedom, and then over time they become successful, they become abundant, they become apathetic, and then all of a sudden they're back in tyranny again, and then they got to fight that revolution all over again. It's like this big cycle. It's just human nature. We never truly learned from the past. We never learned to take what we have and continually build upon it. It's just one of these things that we always feel like whatever is going on, politicians always feel like they have to be the next step. You know, oh, so you guys now have too much freedom, because obviously people are going to abuse freedom. That's the way it works. But then we go, okay, so we need to rein this in. And then people are going to push the limit anymore. Okay, we have to rein that in too. Just like I mentioned before about that quote about Attorney General Ed Meese, who said, every day Congress meets, you lose a little bit more of your liberty. Well, eventually you lose so much liberty you can't get it back, and the only way to get it back is to fight an armed revolution. Now, hopefully we are centuries away from that here in the United States, but maybe it is inevitable. It is just the history of man. And to say it never could happen or never would happen, I think is short-sighted. And finally, our last comment comes from Ryan Green. This fight will be fought forever. Crazy that's even a thing we're talking about. Fighting for our God-given rights. Well, he doesn't say what he voted for, but I tend to think in this case it's more of a neutral comment. It's just one of those battles of good and evil. There always will be, because once one side gains so much power, and this is not just on the pro-gun or anti-gun side, it can be good and evil, or even in American politics where we have polarization between Democrats and Republicans or conservatives and liberals. When one gains too much power, or the pendulum of power moves into one camp, the other side is motivated to grow, and people who might be on one side will then begin to shift to the other side. We like to have balance, and so it will constantly be fought forever. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. I tend to think, as I said, balance in general in life is a good thing, but also it's just part of being a human being. The battle of good and evil will be fought forever. And that's the way it is. All right, so that is the Texas Gun Vault poll question of the week. Your responses, my thoughts, and your comments. So I hope you guys liked this and enjoyed this discussion. If you guys want to participate in next week's poll, it should already be published under my community tab. I will put a link in the description below, so go check it out. Vote, comment, and like other people's comments so we can get the best ranked comments of the week so I can talk about them. I never vote in these polls, and I never respond to anybody in the polls because I personally do not want to skew the results. So there you go. So let me know if you have any questions. And as always, thanks for watching.